job, and Georgia's has great officers. Both Mohawk and Funcourt members in Georgia Motor Trucking, and where I met Mike was actually doing a courtesy inspection at a weigh station with his office. So it's not lip service. We get out there and see what's going on, but those officers are great. Electronic logging device. A lot of your older guys, they say, no, I don't do that. I've been doing this 30 years this way on paper. I don't want to log anything. Figure it out. Sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a big thing. It's for safety reasons, but at the same time, there's a lot of clinics. There's 3 different studies they can use to determine sleep apnea. Okay, depending on which clinic you're going. Some just use the size of their neck. Well, you all know, you see big guys that have big neck but are fit. They'll send them for a sleep apnea test. It can cost anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. Average, some companies will pay for it. Most will not. Average driver is worth him paying $2,500 for 6 sleep. DMV medical self-certification. It's again for safety and everything. What it means is once the driver has, they have to have a medical certification to drive, prove that they're to drive. Well, once they get that physical, they have to report it to their state DMV to add to their MVR that they're self-certified. Well, there's a couple different ways they can do it. One is they can try to do it electronically and see if it works. The state's not always real far. So not only they have to go down to the DMV, here's my medical card, get them to add it to the license right there.
Get in and out of the DMV, right?
Yeah, real quick. But the image of professional drivers in the past, and y'all have all this, but I'm sure a lot of you are old enough in here to remember when they were known as the Knights of the Road. They would help you and you had places to eat. You could always count on them. It's not that way anymore. For one, their cell phones are not good, but there's just the drivers are not looked on as professionals. Although there's a ton of them out there that are fantastic. Okay, image today dangerous. Betrayed by media. The actual fact is that 75% of accidents involving truck and cars, the cars at the front. Going back to what the troopers are saying, cutting in front of trucks. Those trucks cannot stop on the road. And, you got to leave enough space, so just slowing down. Cars are getting in. I'm sure everybody here is driven on 285. Y'all know, I don't have to go any further on that. Unprofessional. When driving, I think you've seen their helmets on straight standing. And straight. And in a case where they're giving your customers, your friends in the country, they have to have that customer service skills. They're the face of your customers. They're Mohawk drivers, but really they're the face of your company. Uneducated. There's some drivers that have the college career post-secondary education. But give an example, he's not a driver, my son. He's got an IT degree. Well, when the recession hit, his job got downsized. He's running a shipping department in a factory right now. So, how do we solve the driver shortage? Increase driver pay. Well, there's not a ton of money out there just to throw at the drivers. You've heard about the insurance? That's tough. The electronic logs. The wages going up fast. Lower the regulated driving age. This has been a big push for apprentice programs with companies that will bring guys on, train them, let them work on the dock, and eventually move into a truck. Graduated age responsibilities. That's a big push right now also, where you take right now, you have to be 21 to have a CDL license, and that is for only intrastate. To drive over state lines, interstate, you have to be 23 years old. Well, most companies out there want 2 years experience, like we were talking about the insurance. 2 years experience. Well, how's a 23-year-old get 2 years experience? How's a 21-year-old get 2 years? Target minorities, women, and veterans. Veterans have a good program. It is, the state will help them get their license, will waive part of the test. That goes back to the problem with it, like Mohawk, they have to pay for their insurance. Therefore, the insurance says they have to have a certain year experience. So a lot of the veterans are being grabbed up by the bigger companies. Women, I'm full more for women driving. They are great. There's some that, not scary. Here's a big one, I'm sure y'all read this. Inland ports, the government spoke. Like the new inland port up in Murray County, coming from Savannah. I know y'all are air freight, but you're talking where the loads will go on a truck, they'll go there, and from there the drivers will go out and get back. That will give them more home time, and they can reach a greater distance from starting out up there as far as North Carolina, Kentucky, implement women to make driving career more appealing. Benefits, we already touched on that, and a career path for your top performers, whether it be a safety director, dispatcher, supervisor. If you take them, you identify that person, and they know, like Mohawk's a perfect example. When they can, they promote from within, which is great, because the other drivers see that, they say, and there's a future here. This one is a big one, focus on driver retention program. And this is being placed by more companies right now than ever before. Rewards program, Mohawk has an attendance reward program. They're looking at other reward programs as well. Define a career path, as we said, it's difficult, but it's doable. Educational assistance benefits. Let's say Mohawk has somebody that wants to learn safety, be certified. They can help them get that. The recognition of outstanding performance. Here's what it's all coming down to, and I call it the perfect storm. You have the insurance, that's an issue, fewer people go there. You got fewer people coming in, you got more goods needing to be moved. It's going to cost more money. It's going to cost all of us in here higher prices. I'm sure if you've been to the store lately, Publix, wherever, you've seen the prices going up. It's not pretty. And it can lead to inflation, which you're hearing on the news now, they're beginning to worry about inflation with all this going on in the higher interest rate. And later mischief, we won't go there too much.
Doesn't have to happen.
No, it's just a fact of life. I mean, there's only so many drivers out there. There's good drivers, most of these good drivers, quality drivers are working. The only way you're going to attract them is to offer them something better, pull them from somewhere else. Well, every company out there is trying this. All right, and I put my contact info up here. You can email me, call me, what you call me, and I'll be happy to talk with you anytime about anything. You have any questions? And any questions now, Paul? Yes, sir.
Do you actually, you recruit drivers, but do you actually have a school that trains drivers, or do you recommend a school?
No, there are certain schools that train drivers. We do not, because we're in a bucket where most of our clients the insurance requires 2 years experience. So we're only recruiting experienced drivers. And we're a little bit different. We place our drivers on a dedicated basis, like the Mohawk. We don't recruit and just throw a driver, hope he's picked. We recruit specifically for Mohawk. That driver's going to Mohawk, he's going to be there. To be honest, a lot of the schools now are just training drivers, just how to get their license, which just scares me to death. The best drivers are ones that are younger, but their father or their uncle or somebody has been in the business, they've been around trucks, they know the true story, and they're going into it. Those make the best drivers.
Do you think more, I mean, you said the benefits, so do you think these trucking companies will be offering health care plans and vacation time? I mean, not just your company said, but
Yeah.
in general, are you seeing that?
Yes, I am.
I'm sorry, I'm not working without vacation time.
Oh, yeah, I'm up for one or another. But, yes, I'm seeing that. I'll give all of you a challenge just to see what it's going to be. Go on the web and look up Career Builders, Craigslist,
Oh, yeah.
any of them, and just look at the driver jobs available. And the companies are offering bonuses anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 sign-on bonuses. Of course, they pay it out over a period of time. But just look at the volume of ads. And therefore, there's a little pond like this, and it's all the way circled around, everybody's got to buy it, trying to find this driver. Yes, sir.
Attended the South Carolina International Trade Conference every year, and I think it was in 2007, 2008, the president of a trucking company ended up putting a presentation on the board, and it showed the cost to run a trucking company or be an independent contractor, and then showed their exposure, right? In a lot of cases, that, I mean, the warranty risk was really, really significant.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a daunting task. And back then, the topic was what can be done to recruit the younger generation into the field. As a father of 4 kids, a 17-year-old who doesn't know what in the heck he wants to do with his life, it seems to me that there should be a lobbying group or something that's an apprenticeship program where they're getting a mentor, they're getting that experience and then segueing them into this, as opposed to living in their parents' basement.
Yeah, you can come up here and give the presentation. Exactly. Companies are starting their apprenticeship, but we missed the boat by about 20 years on this. And I'm just being blunt, it's ugly now, it's going to get a lot uglier. Because that line and the guys retiring and the people coming in, it's going to cross. And then the available drivers are going to start dropping. The volume's going to start dropping.
Even like 5-10 years ago, we used to be able to recruit by word of mouth. That's how we got most of our drivers. They heard of us, they'd seen us around the airport, and that's how we recruited a lot of our drivers. But not anymore.
So my father drove a bobtail truck for a newspaper company in Los Angeles. And when I was graduating from high school, he said, hey, see if I can get you an interview with my boss and drive. And I said, thanks, Dad. I saw the different times, the different hours and things that he was working. And I said, I'll give college a shot. That would be my contingency plan, right? But I saw the hours that he was working and everything, and I thought, wow, this is pretty rough. Maybe I try to do something a little bit different. So I think some of those pros need to outweigh some of those negatives.
I've got a small story, and I'll get to Mike. I know we're running late. I worked for an air freight forwarder at Kennedy Airport for about 8 years. And my wife, I don't know if anybody's familiar with New York or Long Island, my wife worked at Newstead. And she worked in payroll, so she saw what the drivers were making and some of the people. Goes, I can get you in. I said, nah, I'm not a truck driver. So and here I am running a trucking company. But it was a little different back then. With the degree and everything. It wasn't the glamorous job, but it's getting to a point where we're going to have to recruit like that.
But it's funny, you mentioned the Northeast area. You're seeing a lot more pressures now with unions trying to take advantage, because up there was heavily unionized.
It was very heavily unionized, but down here, we haven't had too many issues with it, you know, so not at all. You know, one of these days, maybe, you know, but we'll have to address that, but hopefully, we treat our guys pretty good, so they you know, like Danny mentioned, we have a health care, we have 401k, we have a liberal vacation plan, you know, so hopefully we can keep that aspect out of our.
What's the average age of your drivers?
Wow. I would
How
say
many
it's in the
drivers
40
do you
range.
have? How many
40
drivers do you have?
45.
Company-wide, we are at 39 drivers. And I think of those 39, 29 are based here in Atlanta.
And then, sorry, again, how many drivers do you need?
We could put on 4 or 5 and have work for them to do right now.
I mean, we're
If we
saying no,
find them.
we're saying no to a lot of things.
Yeah.
We can't find the drivers. We get the equipment.
But there's also, there's
We
also,
got equipment, you know, but, you know,
there's also a screening process. I mean,
Yes, sir.
a lot of what ProSource does as a kind of sidecar to Mohawk is really do the grunt work and checking people's past history and verifying employment, their previous accident record. Some of that information is harder to come by. So, I mean, a lot of people will hire a driver because they know where to put the key and turn the wheel, okay? And our process is longer. We go through maybe 12 to 18 people to hire one person, because it's all about these standards that a world-class company is going to require.
Well, and also it goes back to the liability and the insurance.
All of it. But it all takes time. And the amount of detail we go through with each person coming aboard, I mean, a lot of people are taking the shortcuts, Mohawk brought on ProSource to further refine that whole process of managing and hiring and recruiting people, that kind of thing. ProSource has been around since 1958. We were started as a logistics company, actually by my father. He was a senior VP for Ryder, and Ryder needed drivers at the time. They didn't have Ryder Logistics, so he created a company called Driver Service then. So we've been doing specialized, third-party logistics for a very long time, and we've always tried to do what is being talked about here today, which is you treat the drivers with respect. Without drivers, we wouldn't be sitting here. Okay, and you treat them with respect. So long they've been treated as second-class citizens, and I feel in that way both ProSource and Mohawk are way ahead of the curve on the recognition and the respect we have for the people. But you also want to create an environment that the best people want to come to. I mean, it works both ways. So that's the whole process we're engaged in here, to make sure that we've got, it's not just lip service like they were saying, but it's the real deal. We've got people that, we want people to come into our business and want to live here for the rest of their lives. I mean, at one point we were doing business with Amoco BP, and the average tenure there was about 8-9 years for a driver, which is unheard of, really, because of the way people are hopping around. They're hopping around even more now because the pay, like they're saying, it's almost like being around a betting poker table, where one company says, I'll see your 50 cents and raise you 50 cents. And unless you build that loyalty and trust and respect, a lot of people will cross the aisle and go for the other 50 cents until they're raised. I mean, so we're trying to ultimately create a kind of a whole package for transportation where people are respected, they want to be, and they perform safely. And it goes back to the values of the company and things like that. We've been at it for a very long time and have been partners now with Mohawk for a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and, thanks, Danny. I'm going to go ahead and get started on our last one, because I know we're running a little over time here, and I want to get you down to lunch, because I know it's ready for you. But we've heard today a bunch of different speakers from all different walks of life that Mohawk works with every day. And these slides are in your handout as well. What we face as a trucking company, what Mohawk faces is increased regulation and enforcement, There's more laws on the books than ever before that we have to follow. The enforcement presence, the officers talked about the governor's office throwing more officers on the payroll. So there's more folks out there to come get us. The growing insurance premiums we talked about, the shrinking driver market we talked about. But how does this impact you guys sitting down today? Okay. What it impacts is how productive Mohawk is able to be. Okay. In order to combat all those things, the rising insurance premiums, the driver market, the time that we have to spend facing all these regulations and enforcement, we need more trucks and more drivers today than we did in years past to handle a similar workload. Years and years and years ago, drivers would work 90, 100, more than 100 hours a week just to get a big check. The government caps that at 70 hours now a week, regulated. Okay, so to do 110 hours worth of work, we used to be able to have one driver do that. Now we got to hire two, which means we got to hire another one on. In the shrinking driver market, that's a problem. Okay, it's also it costs Mohawk more money to hire that additional driver. So where does that money come from? Well, it's eating into Mohawk's profit margins. Also, more equipment. We need 2 trucks to do a similar workload. Got to buy 2 trucks now instead of 1. It's also requiring trucking companies to schedule drivers and trucks more in advance. The last minute picking up the phone, hey, can you pick something up right now? I hate to tell you guys, those days are coming to an end. The availability to do last minute favors is shrinking. You know, we do the best we can to do what you guys ask, because we understand your customers are asking you at the last minute. Okay? But we all have to play a part in educating up the chain and with you guys that's getting harder and harder to do. Okay? It requires shippers to plan ahead and schedule more in advance. Okay? Trucks are booked kind of on and drivers on a first come, first served basis. It's kind of like going to a restaurant. You got to put your reservation in, because if you walk up expecting a table, you might get it, you might not. And last minute shipments often are going to see increased rates. I know we were, Melanie in Air Import asked us yesterday to take a shipment from the airport here to Deutz Pendergrass, 53-footer. Okay, our normal rate for that, we'll just say, Glenn, with fuel is about $400.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more.
450?
450,
500. She had trouble finding trucking companies that even had trucks available, and the only one that she found, $1,000. Okay? This is why. This is why. Okay? So we mentioned the cost. The decreased productivity, the fewer available truck drivers, the rising driver wages, the insurance premiums, fuel prices are going up. These factors, the regulations, they're all creating increased costs for the trucking companies, which unfortunately, there comes a point where we can't absorb them all anymore and they have to be passed on. Okay? So how can you guys as shippers help us solve this problem? Okay, the first bullet is you guys help educate your customers, okay, the folks that you work with. Okay, let them know how critical it is for them to load and unload trucks right away as they arrive. Okay, I can't stress this enough, how many places we go and the warehouses we're delivering to say, we'll get to you when we get to you. Okay? We have problems getting unloaded in a timely manner. We have problems getting loaded in a timely manner. These hours are eating into it. And not only our customers, but ourselves. You know, we have to work with our own warehouses to make sure they get us in and out. Okay? The quicker we can get in and out, the more that truck and driver can do, and the more productive they can be. And the less drivers we need, the less trucks we need, which decreases our costs, which means we don't have to pass on as much to you. Okay, planning ahead, we mentioned, this allows more flexibility for Mohawk to move our pieces around, so to speak. And if we can move our pieces around in the best way we know how to, it's going to allow us to get the job done at the lowest possible cost and the quickest possible time. Okay, flexibility we just talked about. Flexibility on delivery and pickup times. This is something you can help educate your customer. A lot of places, we only take shipments between 1 and 3, or we need you here right at 2, or we close at 2:30. In the morning, we have a 9:30 cutoff. It takes us an hour or 2 to get loaded at this warehouse, and I got to be in Gainesville by 2? How does that work? So pickup windows, pickup times, the longer, the broader they are, is going to allow us, again, to move pieces around and keep the cost low. Appointment times, shippers and receivers that have exact pickup times, it kills productivity. That's going to lead to increased rates. We have a surcharge for specials, but to be honest with you, that's a bare minimum cost. Our cost, we actually eat into the profit margins quite a bit on those, because it allows us. We have to be at such a spot at 3 o'clock. So between, in order to make that window time, a lot of stuff has to get pushed off or pushed onto another truck. So if you can help educate your customers to shy away from appointment times and shy into broader pickup and delivery windows, you'll be surprised how much of a difference that can make. Treat drivers with respect. We heard Danny and a lot of folks talk about that. They have options. Doug mentioned the poker table. They can go to the next seat over for 50 more cents an hour, and they're going to leave well if they're not treated well at the delivery and pickup locations. A driver gets to one of your customers, and the forklift driver at one of your customers doesn't treat him well, he's leaving Mohawk. I don't have to put up with that, or he could. And then we're in the driver shortage, and then we're having a rough time getting drivers to deliver your freight. And then rates are increasing. If we can get in front of the problem now and start planning ahead, working with your customers, to say, hey, all the things we've talked about today, if we educate them, hey, this is on the horizon. That way, when you go to them with rate increases, they're kind of expecting it. I know a couple forwarders, competitors of Kuhn & Nagels, they have little disclaimers on the bottom of their email now. Due to the current trucking market, rates are going up and capacity's down and all those different things. So it's a real challenge that your customers should be aware of. And then work with your other vendors. In our case, your airlines. Okay, going over to these airline cargo handlers sucks because they have 2 or 3 forklifts, maybe, to load 10, 12 trucks at once. That's why it takes us 4 hours to pick up one little box from an airline. So if we can work with other vendors and kind of work with them to kind of help them be the best they can be at the service they're providing to you, it goes a long way in the whole supply chain. Unfortunately, because of all these challenges, because the trucking company's the last one to handle the freight, we get to touch it last. Often it's up to us to try and make up for that lost time. Your container gets delayed in the port, your freight gets bumped off until tomorrow's flight. That's a day behind, so now we got to go even more than we had to. And the trucking company's ability to go to make up for that lost time because of the driver shortage, the insurance market, all the things we've talked about today, the regulations, it's less and less likely that we're able to overcome as much of those delays. It's just we unfortunately can only squeeze so much juice out of the lemon. So that's kind of how it hits home to us in this room and how it hits home to Mohawk. We as Mohawk, we greatly appreciate the Kuhn & Nagel support. And we try and make sure that reflects back on the service we provide to you and your customers. And look forward to many, many, many more years of partnership. But unfortunately, this isn't meant as a doom and gloom presentation, but a lot of things in our industry are changing and not for the better. So we've got to try and get out ahead of it and try and adapt to it the best we can. So with that, I can take any questions, or Glenn, if you want to jump in, add anything.
I know the concept of educating your customer is a tough thing to grasp. I remember a long time ago, I was talking to one of the import supervisors here. It was on a Sunday, and he was complaining, why is this, why is that? Why does it take 3 or 4 hours to get your freight? And this is about, well, that's how the airlines work. That's how the port works. Sometimes, there are things out of your control that they should be made aware of. And I know it's a hard concept to grasp,
We
and
get the
I'm
same
not sure-
explanation you get, look, our competitors can do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you guys get the same thing.
We get the same
do
thing,
too.
yeah.
Our competitors do
It's-
too.
Our competitors are going through the same thing.
Sure.
You are. So, it's, when I started in 99 with Kuhn & Nagel, we had 4 trucks. They used to let us pick the freight, load our own trucks. We could get out of there by 10:30 with a 10 o'clock close. It's tough today.
I'm not an air freight person,
Right.
I'm an ocean person.
But even the ocean freight, you know,
We have customers now, they're like, well, we understand the trucking's going up, but we want you to cut our ocean freight.
Yeah.
Well, that's not gonna happen either.
No. But that's the dilemma we're in. Okay. Any questions? All right, well, thanks for taking a busy morning to spend with us, and
Lunch is in the first floor break room, so please join us for lunch. It's Chick-fil-A. So I've never had a bad meal from Chick-fil-A, so I don't plan on starting today. And thank you guys very much for being here.